Warning, this episode of Starfleet Boy contains major spoilers for the first episode of Star Trek Picard, Remembrance. So you've been warned. If you're not caught up with everything, then please go watch it and come back and listen to our discussion. We'd love to have you. Welcome to Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal discussion about our beloved series, Star Trek.
I'm not part of this reunion.
No.
Yes, you are.
I saw Sean last week. Whatever. I'm over this guy.
You're part of the... It's true. Is everybody recording? Is everybody recording their audio?
Do we have to do the clap?
I am recording.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a 4-person clap. This has been a while since we've had this many people on Starfleet Boy, so we'll see what happens. I've got the D here. I've got my Picard family.
All right, I'm recording.
All right, cool.
Hi, same here.
All right. Did you guys hear that?
What? No, I heard nothing.
Me mom. Oh, it's okay. It's just a hash brown. I already ate breakfast. Rena's gonna bring it. Oh. Okay.
Wait,
So everyone's recording,
eating
right?
breakfast, but Rena's gonna bring it.
Oh, I didn't
have
know
a hash-
we could have breakfast.
You ate breakfast.
It's
Have
for Gates
breakfast on
McFadden.
this?
I do this for Gates McFadden. She likes to see us eating on the show, so
She
it's
does.
like a tradition.
She does like that. Yeah, she's a foodie.
So
She enjoys
here's a hash brown for today's episode of Starfleet Boy.
Her and her ghost boyfriend watched the show.
Oh my goodness.
We have a lot to share today. So let's do our... Everyone's recording. Sorry. Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Sean?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm recording.
All right. 1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3, clap. All right. Picard clap. Very nice.
I do find it funny that the next episode of TNG you're going to record is Sub Rosa. And it's not a good episode, but in comparison to what Picard is delivering, it's going to look really shit.
It's true.
I mean, just recording Sub Rosa
That's
as a
actually
follow-up
true.
to Star Trek Picard is going to be real awkward.
All right, so we start our episode with blue skies shining on me, nothing but blue skies. All right, there it is, Humbert. I have it on for you in the background. Look, there she is, the D.
D.
All right,
That's great.
so
You got me good with that one.
they did. We're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Today we are focused on Star Trek Picard, Season 1, Episode 1, Remembrance. We already had a initial reaction. The Doctor and I went on the night of, and he witnessed...
I witnessed
something.
I witnessed things.
he witnessed me gushing over it, but the Doctor wasn't far behind me. And then The Martian, as Ruben is known, and I did a drunk Picard takeover of Drunk Space Nine last night.
Was it
And
drone Space Nine?
Drone Space Nine because
Space Nine.
the Martian was stoned and I was drunk, so it was a drone Space Night. But it wasn't it was a Picard, a drone Picard, and we actually created a new character on the show. I don't know if you ever listened to Drunk Space Nine, the Doctor. The new character is the ghost of Robert Picard, who haunts Chateau Picard and teases Jean-Luc constantly. You put a goddamn replicator in my kitchen where Marie cooked fresh
Look at
food for
Picard.
me and Renee.
Sad because he's alone. I died alone 10 years ago, Picard.
No, I died with my son.
In a fire, in a glorious
That's
fire.
what everyone thinks, Picard, but I ate my son to stay alive.
So yeah, we created a new character. So if you're interested, audience, to meet the ghost of Robert Picard in his full glory, you can listen to Drunk Space Nine.
So does he look like
later on
Robert
today.
Picard in TNG, or does he look like that one photo from Generations?
He's definitely the actor who I forget his name, but he's definitely the actor from TNG. It's the
Or is he
The real
like a
Robert.
weird morph between them two, both?
Some weird, yeah.
Oh,
we thought of a Picard Christmas special, like a Picard Christmas Carol, and Robert could be the ghost of Christmas present. Renee could be the Christmas present. Robert the Christmas past, and then Q could be the ghost of Christmas future.
Wow, you've given this a lot of thought.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I really have. It's true.
Apparently, only one of us slept, and the other one thought about this whole idea.
Wow. I'm very impressed.
So, yeah. Yep. So we're here to talk about Picard. We already know what all of us think of it, I think. So I think for this discussion, we don't even need to give a summary, right? Unless, Sean, do you have
No, we don't need to give a
hankering
summary. Not another one.
I thought we
We've
were
already
each going to
given
take.
some-
Didn't you do a summary last time?
What's that?
Didn't you do a summary on a Starfleet Boy? Did you do a summary on
Right.
Drunk Space Nine as well? There'll be like the third summary. Everyone's seen the
He
episode.
we
loves
didn't-
summarizing.
we
There's
didn't do the
nothing
summary
he
last
likes
night.
more than summarizing.
All right, I'm going to give you
I
a
thought we
summary
were just
of
going to
my...
spend an hour taking turns saying, I fucking love this show so much.
Which is true. So I was really surprised.
You know what? The summary is this. Picard is troubled by events of the past that we don't yet know too much about. Daj, this random girl, pops up in his life. He realizes that Daj is possibly the daughter of Data, but is most assuredly what we call a synthetic. She's an android. She dies, but we know that she has a twin. Da-da-da.
named Soji.
Dun, dun,
Oh, that was it?
That's a great summary.
That is a
End
great
of
summary.
summary.
All right.
I gotta get this call. I'll be right back.
You go
Yeah.
get the call.
Yeah,
Alright.
go get the call. Over.
Don't pause anything.
Okay. All right.
Just keep recording. Yeah, I was like, he's going for his computer. What is he doing? Good summary.
No.
So this is the official reunion of the Doctor who's not there, and Ruben, and also our Star Trek Picard deep dive. We're gonna plumb the depths.
Are you playing
We're
the
gonna go-
episode in the background?
Yes, I am. That's
Are
right.
you not afraid of
It's-
anything?
Well, isn't it
screen-
partially
the screen is
obscure-
cut.
It's,
Yeah, fair
it's
enough.
obscured, right?
I don't know.
it's-
I've heard,
and then
I've
I'm
heard
in its-
horror stories about people getting snagged for lesser things.
Really?
I
All
don't
right,
re-
we're
I-
gonna
yeah.
cut it.
YouTube.
I very much appreciate the episode being in the background. It's just that I wouldn't
Yeah.
want our poor discussion to be destroyed.
I was listening to
All
Joe
right.
Rogan's podcast the other day. He was talking about it, how he got flagged because his producer was looking up something on the computer, and the corner of the screen was in frame,
Oh my goodness!
and something that popped up in the corner that they weren't even looking at. He was looking for something else, and there was like an ad or something in the corner, and like YouTube flagged it. And he got like, it's like, dude, come on.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So now like the producer's
All right.
screen.
Hopefully that won't be flagged. Should we just restart? And we're back on just in case I have to cut that part out.
Well, then you've missed the summary, haven't you?
Pretend like we just started right now.
Just, yeah, we're gonna pretend
No,
like we
please,
just-
no.
No, because
recreate
no,
anything,
we cut
no.
the.
So we need to
Not
do a
for my
synopsis
benefit.
first.
Well-
Synopsis first.
A synopsis of the synopsis? No, please. No.
we cut the TV because we were worried that actually they might poo poo on us.
Yes.
The synthetic life forms that scan the.
Synthetic life form of the
The
attacker.
AI butt slapper
Okay.
from YouTube.
All right.
In fact, that's actually my question to start off this episode. Given the situation with the synthetics that we know so far, where they're banned because of the attack on Mars, what do you think? Now we're like delving into AI. Do you think this is like a? Do you think AI should be banned? Like, are you guys afraid of AI as much as I am? Or
Well, I want to say I think whoever came up with the idea of like kind of making that part of the center of the show, was genius, because that was always a big question with Data. which was like the whole Maddox thing. Like, if you had something like Data in real life, you'd want to duplicate it. You'd want a Data on every ship, even though, you know, like they had the whole episode where they battle the, but like in a kind of real world scenario, they would want to replicate it. So I like that they came up with, let's base it on kind of that and kind of go from that was true.
Not only that, they connect it like directly to Maddox, which is interesting. So
right.
You know,
Well, my two questions, you know, leading out of the show with the whole AI thing is, one, I said it in the other one, is where's lore? You know, they show us before, but lore, I think, has to be addressed. And then the other thing is, you know, I understand, okay, you know, the ban on synthetic life forms or whatever, but what stops the Klingons, let's say, from doing it? What stops the Jem'Hadar, or, you know, whatever, like people who are not part of the Federation? How come they don't create?
It's a galactic treaty. Agnes, I've watched it like 6 times.
Well, it's kind of like the same thing of like, you know, what stops Iran from making nukes right now? You know, and it's treaties and agreements.
It's the mustard gas thing. Like everyone on Earth has the agreement that not to use mustard gas, and so it's the same thing. I would imagine.
Right. All those.
Agnes even
but
said,
that doesn't mean they don't really, you know, maybe
a
few people, you know.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
Locked up somewhere. My quarrel comes with the word synthetics, actually, to be honest, because I think that the word synthetics is too vast. Now, I don't know where they're going to take this story, but what the hell does synthetic mean in the 25th century? Mm-hmm. Because do holograms count as synthetics? Yes. Do the Jem'Hadar count as synthetics? They're like basically bred to be soldiers. They're not, but you can't say that they're androids. They are biological, but they serve a function which is to fight. They are drugged so that they can only serve that function, and they're like they're bred,
right,
and grown in labs.
What is
basically.
Dodge and Soji? They bleed. They seem to
don't
have.
know. So
What
is synthetic?
It's a little weird because you also have to going on that. Like, remember that girl that Wesley fell in love with, who like turned into light? You know, like
and there's a ship. They find a ship.
It's kind of a little bit weird that they would.
They find a ship in TNG which is also a being, right? Mm-hmm. The ship is the being. Right. Is that synthetic? Right. Is that banned?
I think
at this point it's kind of like does synthetic just mean a different kind of life form? And so if you start banning different kinds of life forms, that goes against everything TNG is.
I think it's a lot simpler than that. I think they're talking specifically about synthetic life forms or creations that that are made by.
Well, they're talking in very 21st century terminology, aren't they? Like very.
No, but I don't think that we've never seen a synthetic. We've never seen a synthetic life form outside of Data that is sentient, because that's what Dr. Girardi's talking about. Is she's like, you know, and I don't think that the synths or whatever they're called are sentient. Maybe they're more like robots than androids, or I don't. You know, it's a good question, but I don't think that like. Gum2, for example, that you referenced, which was the spaceship being that was a symbiote with what was his name? Ephraim? Not Ephraim. Something Tam. Okay. Well, yeah. Gum2, we don't know the origins, but like we made the comparison that like he might be grown, or it might be grown like the TARDIS in Doctor Who. They're grown. They're like not necessarily made, and so they are still, the TARDIS is still synthetic in a sense, but it's also alive, and it also has a weird way of come into existence. So maybe Gum2 is something completely different. I think they're talking specifically about like androids.
Yeah, period. I think I'm gonna wait until we finish the season and we really know like what they're trying to encompass with this. But I think using specifically the word android. Or mechanical, or something more specific to the android style, like
biosynthetic.
I think that would have been a wiser choice, because I mean synthetic is so broad. At the end of the day, it means anything. It's a bit strange. I see what you mean, though. I think that Data is the only one that was actually like correctly sentient, and I feel like all of the other ones are going to be a kind of, you know how they are in iRobot. In iRobot, they kind of live and think, and they explain to you that they all huddle up in corners together when they're in the dark. Mm-hmm. But that's nothing more than just kind of a reaction to something. It's instinct more than anything, but they're not actually intelligent beings. So maybe they're gonna go that
like moths gather to flame or light.
Oh my God, I have that. Or do I? I had that.
Well, that's yours, isn't it?
Is that mine?
Is it? I don't know.
Open the first page and probably says this is Humbert's.
Is there a little? Yeah, is my name in there somewhere? A little question mark with a square? I think. Oh shit.
No, I mean I bought one too, so this might be mine. But
all right.
If you don't find yours, you can have it.
No.
No.
I think that
it's in the family.
Keep that.
Is it written from Humbert, but in your handwriting? Not in his.
Well, you don't know this, Sean, but I am notorious for borrowing things and then they disappear.
And
they go into the
ever finding them again.
They go into the Starfleet Archive Museum.
Oh, I see.
And they never return.
He has a bottomless pit. Everything he borrows, he just throws in there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep that. It's mine now.
No.
So if it's yours, I'm glad to give it back, Doctor, because there's a possibility that it is.
And I'm curious because that was done from the gaming point of view. The
FASA, yeah, it was the FASA role-playing game.
Right.
I played Dungeon Master a lot in middle school and high school, so I had that.
So, because I mean, we have seen Android life before Next Generation in the old show. Now,
yes, and you pointed out that we saw like Android life that was that bled and everything.
Right. Now, of course, the question of sentience. That's the thing where, were they sentient or were they more like like
unclear?
Right.
Well, they seem more like they're sentient in the lore kind of way. Sentient
right.
with a bend towards crazy, whereas Data was stable.
Right.
Data's the Mac OS and Laura was Windows. Bam!
So this
cheap jam Windows.
I'm intrigued.
Nice one.
I'm intrigued about all of the EMH Mark 1s that are on a planet, digging holes somewhere.
All right. All right.
I mean, were they part of the synthetic attack? Did they get mad? Or they just...
Did they cheer? I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
Are they still just...
Is that a reference?
Are they still there?
They don't know?
Oh, is it? Oh, darn. I missed this reference.
I think it's season 7 or like 6 or 7.
Something like that.
Yeah. It's really far along.
Yeah. But basically, the Doctor from Voyager finds out that his version of the holographic Doctor, the EMH Mark 1, was a failure, and all the versions of it, which doesn't make sense either, because you could just turn them off. I don't know why you keep
they want to make them
powering
suffer. That's
them.
why.
Yeah. Like why would you keep powering them? Well, whatever. All the EMH Mark 1s on Earth were put basically to work in like mines or something.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make sense either.
Weird.
Which again is completely stupid because as they dig the tunnels, they have to set up emitters to be able to continue digging.
Yeah, and like don't they already have like robots mine diggers and stuff
or like machines, like big machines. I mean, they have those big machines that water the.
Again, like Hubbard said, why would you put them to suffer like on purpose?
Someone doesn't like what's he called? The one that created the.
Oh, somebody really that doesn't like Zimmerman.
Someone doesn't like Zimmerman, and that's their planet. And like, all right, I'm gonna
make all of his holograms work. Damn it!
The guy,
big minion.
Yeah, the guy who made the decision was like used to bully Zimmerman in school, and he was like, "Another chance, Zimmerman. Put him in the mines."
So this is an episode of Black Mirror all of a sudden.
Oh my god. Well, there is a Black Mirror quality to some of the stuff that's going on in the darkness here, in some of the dark ideas of where the Federation is, and where Starfleet's at. We haven't even really gotten deep into that. We've seen the although everything looks nice and cheery. Thank goodness, like on Earth, the Earth looks bright and happy for the most part, except for Boston and Paris, which are.
Well, it's interesting how since Roddenberry passed away, Starfleet's become more and more of an enemy towards.
We didn't think that that's true.
And darker. Deep Space
we
Nine.
didn't think that. Oh yeah, it has gotten much darker. But we thought that like there were hints of that. We were talking about this, and there were definitely like setups happening all the way back to the movies. Like I don't know. Is it Kirk? Having to steal the Enterprise because they wouldn't let him go to Genesis to get Spock. Like no one understood why Starfleet was like.
Yeah, and even back to the
adamantly,
original series, there were always like
against
corrupt
that.
captains that went haywire or took over
And then
planets.
also all admirals,
Became
Yeah.
Nazis.
all admirals except for like Admiral
Yeah.
Nagurum
Yeah.
and maybe Admiral Nechayev.
And Commodores. We don't have Commodores anymore. Have you noticed that?
Anywhere.
There were a few
It's true.
Commodores on.
Where did all the they
Where did
they
that
banished
rank
the rank
go?
They,
I just,
they banished the
you know,
rank.
No one got
the Commodores.
all of the admirals got mean and became villains, so they never got the Commodore.
Yes, I miss the Commodores.
Like, we haven't had a Commodore in 50 years. What's going on?
I know, right?
Maybe that'll be Janeway's appearance, Commodore Janeway.
Oh,
Commodore
if she's a
Janeway.
Commodore. That would be. Is Commodore above an admiral?
I believe so. Yes.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love for her to be Commodore Janeway. That would be amazing.
I think I don't know. I'm not. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure. But we should have a Commodore.
We
come back.
in our drunk discussion, something that I remember was I told Ruben about how we were wondering like where's Lore and like is the neuron
A Commodore
that
is
Maddox
between captain and the lowest admiral,
Oh, okay.
which is the
yeah.
funnest
Alright,
admiral.
that's-
It's the rear admiral. Hey, baby.
Oh.
the
I'll be right behind you, boys.
wow. All right, so
I couldn't resist. That was too easy.
this is Hangover: The Next Generation, and clearly we're still hanging. No,
This is fucking Avengers, man. You got the Avengers together here. You know, it's gotta go big. The joke's gotta be bigger. Everything's gotta be bigger.
Starfleet Boy, assemble!
Oh my god.
That is really funny. Where was I going?
You were
with
going to say
my
something
thought?
about lore.
Oh, thank you.
You were gonna do the
I
summary.
brought up the
No, don't. No.
where's
We're going to
Lore.
do the 10th summary.
And then
of
we
Picard.
also wondered, well, okay, he could have gotten the neuron. Maddox could have gotten the neuron from, Starfleet Forensics could have found it in the wreckage of the Scimitar, possibly.
No,
maybe.
that's
They
not-
could have
no.
retrieved a.
No, there was nothing left on it.
There was totally obliterated. I call bullshit. on
Okay,
that.
the B4
Isn't there
had
a second
Data's.
data head in San Francisco?
There is.
But then he would be headless in
Oh
the
no,
future.
no, because he already has the head, right?
He has the
He
his
has
head
the
is
head that
500
was
years
assembled,
older. Yeah.
They would have to go back in time and get the neuron.
But you would mess up Picard
Maybe
and Guinan
Guinan
meeting.
has it.
I was gonna say you'd have to ask Guinan, bring the head.
Bring the Guinan comes in with
When you're in the past, pick it
Right,
up,
bring
and then
it
just
up,
keep it
bring
with
it
you for
in.
the next
Right.
fucking.
But the B4
years.
certainly has Data's, even though it didn't express as far as we know because the ban went into effect and they boxed B4. But the B4 potentially has data in his neuronet, and so a neuron from the B4 could also express data type things. But then Lore, which we talked about, is a possibility. But then what about Lal? Where's Lal? Although certainly Lal is in Data in the sense that Data did download all
She
of
was trash,
Lal's.
wasn't she?
Right?
I wouldn't think that
Riker was
Data would
like,
just-
I'll take care of it, Data. I'll throw her away.
He wouldn't have kept.
Oh,
Hot damn.
No, but-
he wouldn't have kept her around. I feel
No,
like.
that's a little bit creepy, I think. Data just like pulls her out of a closet. Is like, hi.
Well, if it's
You know,
Data,
This used
right?
to be-
So he
this
just
used to be
keeps
my
her.
daughter.
He just
This
keeps
used
her,
to
like,
be my
standing-
daughter.
He just
That's
keeps
how
her
he picks
standing
up
next
girls.
to his
It's
bed,
like,
like,
hey.
Oh God, he's like he's moving his Starfleet uniforms around and he pushes Lol and
Weekend at Lulz.
Spock, get away from Lol.
Weekend at Lulz. Oh my
Wow.
god.
Weekend at
This
Lol.
is
There we go. Weekend at Lol.
the single version of the emotion chip has been destroyed with Data
Yeah.
along in Nemesis as well, so that'll never happen ever again. They'll never be able to.
Well, that's the version of the emotion chip that was
Well,
destined
there
for
was
Data.
one emotion chip,
There was one.
Lore had one
No,
I had
also.
it, and
No,
but then he passed it to Data. It was the same one,
Right.
but it wasn't made for Lore, so it didn't work in him correctly.
Right. Okay. Right. So
So
yeah, that's gone too.
so
and it
technically-
got bigger. Geordi did something to it, and first it was like a little tiny chip, and then in Generations it's like this gigantic thing.
Vacuum
And
tube.
So
Yeah.
Here's
it's a
your
vacuum,
emotion.
like they-
Like it brought out
He made it more. He made them more complex.
like the 5 1/4 floppy or whatever. He's like,
Yeah.
how do we get that in there?
Working.
I do want to kind of poke holes into the idea that, because basically what they're saying is that one neuron from the positronic brain can allow for the creation of the whole positronic brain.
Yes. Haven't you seen
Yeah,
the,
but it
Which is
happens.
a
seen
But
the
the
big-
opening
process,
sequence?
but the process makes it happen
Which I hate,
in
by the way.
pairs.
Yeah.
Wait, what did you hate? Sorry.
I hated
Yep.
the opening titles are absolute, just
Oh my God,
boring.
I
as
love the
balls.
opening
I mean,
title.
really, it's just.
Did you watch them again? Have you
I
watched
don't- I
them
don't
again
like
since
That's
we-
I don't
that's
like
going to
it.
be an automatic skip.
Yeah.
When
I have the
watch
option
the
to
show.
skip it. I will. It might grow on me with time,
Wow.
but I think the visuals are trying too hard to be cool, but they end up being nothing.
Yeah.
And the music is.
I
in
think
a
the visuals are going to mean something as the show
The
as
music
the show
is in a
progresses.
constant state of beginning, but it never
Yeah,
crescendos. It
it
never
never-
becomes
right.
anything.
That's true.
It's always starting, but never.
It's
never
very
starts.
unmemorable. It's just totally unmemorable. I mean, think about Next Generation. Like, dun, dun, it grabs you right there.
But that's
all
not
the
what
other
the-
ones.
grabs.
Just,
Like,
yeah,
wow.
doesn't grab me at all.
Wow,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I also
Well,
love. Did you watch
love
the Ready
everything.
Room?
Kind of in the middle.
Do you like it?
Did you watch the?
I feel like because I didn't like the Deep Space Nine and Voyager theme songs the first time I heard them either. Because Next Generation has that bam, that power.
Right.
The other
yeah.
ones kind of start off a little chill, but they do crescendo and eventually.
They do.
I've seen both shows now a million times, so like to me, I love both theme songs. So I'm kind of.
And there is a
I'm
crescendo,
kind of
by the
like
way,
maybe
in
this will
this.
grow on me a little more, and I'll find the kind of what's going on in it.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Because Deep Space
that's
Nine has
kind of
grown
why
on me
I'm
over the
like-
years. Like Voyager, I've always loved both visually and the music. I
Yes,
think the music
Voyager
is,
does.
uh,
That's the
amazing.
best part of the show. Is the,
But Deep Space Nine, I always thought was very boring. I mean, just various
it's-
shots of the station is static, and I mean, it has
It's
nothing
like
to offer.
here's the
basically.
station.
here's
it
the
is
station again.
Da,
Here
da,
it
da,
is.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, it's like.
da, 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 da,
Like,
da,
2
da,
minutes.
da, 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 da,
But
da.
over the
But it's
time,
memorable.
Yeah,
Like you
over
can
time.
hum
But this
it.
one is too. It's.
Can you
it's-
hum?
This one
Can you
is.
hum this
doo
one?
doo doo.
No, I can't.
I've only watched the
only-
episode
Yeah, I
once,
can't.
so-
I've been humming it all day.
only-
Actually.
Okay,
Yeah,
please,
okay,
can you
well-
please hum it for us? I want to hear you hum
Doo
it.
doo doo doo. I can't hum the whole thing
By-
right
by
now.
the-
I
end
know
of the
because you
season,
can't.
I'll
It's
try.
not hummable.
It's in my head.
No,
It's in
no,
my
it's
head.
I'll
unhummable.
try by
That's
the
the
end of the
problem.
season. The only thing I give it is that it uses the flute quite a lot, and I think it's a reference to the Norse
Yeah.
flute.
The Resican flute.
Picard,
If you watch,
peace out, Picard.
if you guys watch the Ready Room, hosted by Will Wheaton,
No.
Will Wheaton.
I don't.
No.
But if you do watch it, there's a segment with Jeff Russo, and he's 100% referencing the Catan, the Resican flute.
The Gorn
in the
flute.
beginning, and he ends with it, and then you hear the familiar TNG slash
Yeah, they always have to tie in
motion
musically,
picture
don't
theme at the end. The other thing I really liked, forgetting the main titles, but actually the music during the show at the end when we get to the Romulan reclamation
Oh
site.
yeah, it had the old Romulan.
You do hear
Yeah.
dun 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 dun.
I thought it was the
dun,
Mission
dun,
Impossible theme
dun,
for a minute.
dun.
Like the old, I was like, what?
I didn't.
And then I realized, oh no, because it sounded very 60s, and I was like,
All of a
isn't that
sudden,
Mission Impossible?
a match lights up.
And Peter Graves comes out, you
Like,
know?
what? This show just took a turn.
Right.
did notice
both
that
Paramount, so it could happen. But
I did notice that the music is good throughout the episode. Like the scoring is good,
the scoring is very good,
and it works. It's just specifically the opening theme is nothing.
It's utterly forgettable. Yeah, but getting back to the neuron thing, I mean, it doesn't really make sense.
It's more
to
fiction
me.
than science, isn't it?
It's
What
more,
doesn't make
it's
sense
just-
about it?
It's more magic, I think, than I mean. It's like I believe the. It reminded me of Alien Resurrection, you know, where they cloned
dear
Ripley from just like one strand of her hair or something.
Right.
Well,
which
that's
was
not
quite
magic. That's almost real. You can almost kind of do that. But regarding
But
the
you're
neuron,
not going to get
the
her.
Let's just compare the neuron to something that exists in computing. Are you familiar with RAID systems? Yes. raid everyone. So there are raid systems. You can set up a raid system where, let's say you have 10 hard drives, and like 5 of them were to fail. If you add 5 new hard drives, those new hard drives will reconstruct the data based on the fragments of data on the 5 remaining hard drives.
But you're talking about data.
No. I understand, but that's what essentially a positronic neuron is, right? Because it is just, information.
I don't
that's
think
what.
so. I believe that there's.
What do you mean?
I believe that
Well, but I
that's
mean, like,
magic.
physical hardware.
Exactly, that's where I'm going.
Only
Right.
Dr. Sung knew how to create.
The hardware you're talking
And-
about
and
is
so
she
recreating
said-
the data. What we're talking
Yeah.
about is making the hardware out of the data,
Correct.
which
That's
is
exactly right.
Doesn't seem.
I think what
So
it's
take
more
this-
about.
Take this
So
physical element. No one is able to recreate this physical element. You're not going to be able to recreate it with that neuron, and no other scientist is able to build this. And even Sung only built this element for data. It wasn't in lore, and it wasn't in B4. See what I mean?
Right.
And so how do you could never recreate that?
that's
anywhere.
incorrect. So that's not entirely correct. Lore had a positronic brain. So does before. Data's positronic
but it was
brain
an inferior
is just,
positronic.
But the inferior
Before.
positronic.
Lore's positronic brain was not necessarily inferior.
No.
In fact,
B4s.
the B4, yes.
Right,
but, okay,
but lore we
Lore's-
haven't seen.
But
We haven't seen lore, but I'm
was
just saying,
inferior
like-
as well in this, or at least
So-
different in the sense that he couldn't use the emotion chip correctly. It wasn't
Right.
built for him.
He had no
So he
empathy.
didn't
But
have
he
the
had
same
his-
components.
Okay, so lore already came with emotions. And what lore wanted to do was he wanted... The emotion chip not only had emotions, but it actually had memories. It had new things in it that were meant for
dreams,
data,
what
like
have you.
new dreams and things like that, information that was meant for data. So that's what's behind that.
It's got
But
Woodstock
going and
66 on it, man. Check it out.
It's true. Dr. Sung is like the Leonardo da Vinci of cyberneticists, right? He created something that no one's been able to duplicate. In fact, Agnes Girardi in this episode, she says, the mechanical part, no problem. We could do that's in our sights. Like even creating a biological, a flesh and blood android was within our sights. The thing that was 1,000 years away was the data. Like that is something that's the researchers didn't even know how to do. The closest they came was this wild idea of Maddox's, and Maddox worked intimately with data. They were friends. He had access to this research, and Maddox, in a sense, is obsessed. So he's like, it would be more like actually a better, I don't know what Maddox is like now, but like I'm sorry for this like comparison to the two characters, but it would be like Mozart and Salieri in a sense, like where Mozart is Sung and Salieri is Maddox. They're both gifted cyberneticists, things like, but Sung just had something. He was touched. He had the, something that like,
Right.
where he just figured it out, and he figured it out. And then we were talking about this. Data's mom is an advancement on Data. Remember, she sweats. She can convince computers that she's biological.
Right,
She,
she's technically the newest model.
she was the newest model,
The
so he
last
kept
model,
improving.
basically.
Right, so he kept improving. So her cybertronic brain, her positronic
And she's
positronic
still
brain is
going
even more
around.
advanced than Data. She has emotions. She is like he literally took his wife and imprinted her neuronet onto this cybernetic or this positronic brain. And if you recall what Lore was trying to do, his demented plan was to replace Geordi's actual neurons with positronic neurons. Remember? Like he had put those little things. So I don't think that's I think it is mechanical. It is, like the thing is that it can be reconstructed in that way, because I mean, like all he was doing is like putting little tubes in there and he was going to create a new neural net. What's missing is the soul. Data seems to have a soul. That's the suggestion, is like, where does that come from? Just like in humans, we don't really know where our soul, if you will, comes from, and that's what's missing in all of these other synthetics, except for Data's mom perhaps, but and that's what they couldn't do. But Daj represents now something new. She's a Maddox. I'm assuming she's a Maddox type android instead of a Sung type android. Now there's a new generation of androids, the Maddox type, and he's kind of like a crazy scientist in my mind. Like he's that kind of a personality where he would try something weird and perhaps it has wonderful results, and then maybe there's some horrible results that we don't know about yet.
So you think Maddox built her?
I think so, 100%.
But then why would she be daughter?
Because Data painted a painting called Daughter, and my speculation is that either Maddox, as an homage to... Remember how Lal got to choose her how she looked? So either Maddox chose that look based on having once seen this painting that was called Daughter, or she has if they did in fact use like a neuron from, like, let's say the B4, which has both Data and Lal's like engrams in there, then maybe she herself recalled this painting that Data painted and chose to, they're twins, and they chose to be that way. They chose to look that way. Maybe they chose to express themselves.
No, I don't think they chose because she's not aware of what she is.
I'm saying in the early stage, right? But in the early stages, when they're in their like beta stage, let's call it, the childhood. Remember, Data himself doesn't remember his childhood. That like early stage when he's being, like when his motor skill, his mom says like your motor skills were off. There's definitely like a childhood that androids go through. The positronic brain develops much like the human brain does, in the sense that it's not like you don't just turn him on and then there's Data. You know what I mean? Like it starts out with like just like a baby in a sense, and he didn't remember any of that. His mother had to tell him those things. So Lal could have had
indestructible baby.
It's true. Lal could have had, and naked. Data used to run around naked in the colony. He didn't have any shame. But so like I don't remember the episode with Lal, but we kind of see that also when Wesley tosses her the ball and she just does this and misses. Like her motor skills are still developing. There's like all these things and then she doesn't actually progress. Like she starts to, it's very sad, she starts to fail, and then the whole thing. But I think that I would assume that the Maddox androids, if they're modeled after the Soong androids, had to go through a similar developmental stage, and where they could possibly like choose their look and a childhood.
And I was saying that there is kind of a similar look between the character who played Lal and the actress who played.
Yeah, there's I think so, with the dark hair and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't know if that was on purpose but maybe all these Maddox synthetics, one of them got the spark of life and chose to look like Data's daughter, not really knowing
why.
Right. And then
it would be more meaningful if it was
that she was ever an android to begin with.
It'd be more meaningful if it was Data's daughter, though, wouldn't it? If like Data had.
But when would we have even created her? I mean,
well, I think
she's
in a
less
sense
than.
that would be.
Maybe it was a joint project. Maybe it was something that he and Maddox were working on for years and years and years, and he failed at Lal, so he started working with Maddox on this, because he's an expert.
I feel like
Geordie's the expert.
Geordie's always fixing Data, so
Geordie's the only one that's capable of fixing it, right?
Yeah. Geordie and Dr. Crusher are the two most familiar with how Data works, so 100% they would.
And yet they're not in the show.
Well, I know. Well, not yet. We don't know. I don't know.
Hey, we got stock footage of
Geordie.
Worf.
Yes, we mentioned that. We talked about that. Yeah. Who took that picture, by the way? That was my question. Who was there to take that picture for the?
I make a comment on that in the review that I'm writing. I say that moment, that montage took me out of the show. Like, it took me out of the universe for a second, because those photos are the same ones that all of us content creators use in our videos. Like, we're constantly posting exactly those pictures, and it looked like they commissioned some YouTuber make a video for us, and we'll throw that in. It'll look cool. Those photos make no sense from an in-universe standpoint.
It's just
no one was
service.
No,
we actually thought it was fitting, though, in a way, because Star Trek has a tradition of doing that. Like in Star Trek 3, how do they have the footage of the Enterprise like even in like it's exactly the way the movie looks.
It's a hell of a black box.
It's like a crazy black box recorder. It's like cameras on the outside.
There happened to be some random guy by himself in a shuttlecraft.
Is that Did that footage come from the dot?
Starfleet has entire teams of CG artists that work these visual effects for every black box.
Exactly. Yeah.
In fact, Sean is the only one who's going to get this, but the .7 robots are probably what recorded all the angles for us. So there you go. That's where they are. That's what the .7s are doing.
All right, let me introduce another question. The Romulans, the look of the Romulans. Obviously, we're going back to, I guess, more of an original series look where they pretty much look, they're indistinguishable from Vulcans after having had
some of them,
right. But I mean, all through Next Generation, DS9, blah blah blah, all those shows, and even through Nemesis, you kind of had they looked, they had the ridges, they had a distinct look. What do you guys think about now going back to this other thing? I have my own idea about why that happened, but I'd like to hear you guys what you think.
You mean like if there's an in-universe kind of explanation?
I think there is a very simple one.
They said it's regional. They said it's regional features, regional differences, and I think that makes sense in the way that there's no longer Romulus with its 17 billion Romulans on it, right? Which were all, assuming they're all the same. The Romulan Star Empire is huge, and now we're dealing with the repercussions of, well, they're calling it like the Romulan Star Empire has gone for some reason because 2 planets or 3 planets from the entire empire.
We don't actually know that the empire's gone, but like it's what it is there's a lot of people that are displaced.
So I'm assuming
my sister actually thought they're all living on Borg cubes. I mean, like that would be really funny if they're all just like.
That Borg cube was huge, by the way. It was way bigger than other Borg cubes that I've seen. Anyway, I'm assuming that a lot of Romulans are moving around, and so that's why we're getting so many different like regional Romulans, because they're coming from all over the Empire.
Right,
it's not just everyone from Romulus. Anyway, anyone on Romulus is dead.
A few Chinese people survived, a few Mexicans, a few Americans, a few Canadians. So you're getting the mix.
Excuse me, it's Space Canadians, Space Mexicans.
I'm sorry, that's right. The Dark Elves, the Snow Elves, the Wood Elves.
There we go. Okay.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Right.
Space Wood Elves. Sorry.
Space Wood Elves.
Wow. Humans are actually we're actually pretty undiverse other than skin tone and height. Other than that, like there's not a lot of diversity.
It's pretty different.
Yeah, none of us have antenna or anything.
No.
Right, like or ridges.
But I mean,
or
if
like
Romulans would be
or,
much the same.
Like although
these Romulans from over here are a little bit shorter, these are a little bit taller, slimmer. These eat more fish, so they're whatever. These.
Right.
I mean, I guess you
Eskimo
have
Romulans. I like that. Remskimos.
What the hell is going on?
He said eating lots of fish, and I thought of Eskimos.
Like
that's really terrible. It's a really terrible thing. I apologize to the Eskimo
I'd love to
community.
see a Romulan gangster.
I also apologize to the Amish because they'll never hear this.
Got like one eyebrow shaved off.
Oh, good grief. Romulan Eminem. What was your idea, though, Humbert? Like, what was your idea about the callback to the original series?
I like that. I like that they look more like the original series one, and especially with that musical cue that came in at the end of the episode, which was, of course, recalling the original Romulan music from Balance of Terror? Balance of Terror.
Balance of Terror, that's right.
Yeah. No, I just assumed that, when we see the Romulans in Next Generation, nobody had really seen them for a long time, right. And they had been sort of in seclusion. And I just kind of assumed in my head, even back then, that it was like some kind of eugenics kind of thing. Like, they've been... they broke off from the Vulcans however many thousands of years ago, and then when they kind of went into a more secluded state, the xenophobia just got to the point where it's like, well, we don't want to even look Vulcan anymore. So they kind of encouraged through eugenics, like more of a, we want to look different. But then
not too different. We don't want to look like the Remans, right?
Exactly. Yes, we don't. Right.
Not that different.
I think it's something else. I think.
Not going to look like
I think that like way back in their history, they mated perhaps with someone else. There's a suggestion that some Romulans are compatible with Klingons in that episode.
Right. They have the blood type or whatever.
Oh, the garbage.
Right. And so I think that you're onto something, but I don't think it was quite intentional because the Mintakans are like that. They have the ridges, and they're so at some point where did the Mintakans get that from? So I think that
Well,
there's like
genetically, that's
you know, like-
that's what I mean. Is that through
Yeah.
you know, they have the potential to
just
have
like,
the
yeah.
ridges, and they encourage
and it got
that.
expressed.
You know,
that
maybe there was
Yeah,
a
maybe they're-
regional Romulan that looked more like that, and they said that's how, you know, just like, you know, Hitler was like, no, we should all be blonde. Okay, let's
Right.
all start. But then as time
Pre-Nemesis-
goes on, they want, now that their Romulans are more engaged with the universe, and now that, of course, at the point of this show where they're basically, you know, more in the universe, now they're kind of returning to a more, and obviously after the whatever Spock has done, and you know, whatever efforts have been made to bring Romulans back closer to the universe,
Well, we
maybe
see-
they've lost that idea
But
of
they
like,
haven't,
let's
'cause
look
we
different.
Yeah, perhaps, but we definitely see both types of Romulans in Star Trek Picard because both of his I forgot his name again, is Jahan or something like that, but he has kind of like the ridges.
See, you say both
and then-
types, and
but there might be more.
That's
there might
wrong.
be more variations. Yeah,
and that's what I very much like. I don't see it as both types. It's like we see different degrees of ridges and of shapes and of what have yous. And I find that there's like a spectrum to what they look like, and I think that is absolutely the best route to go. And I think that they should do that with every species on screen. If you want to do an Andorian, you now look at all of the Andorians that we've seen over the years, from Discovery all the way back to the original series, and you do a spectrum of all of those different Andorians. And so it just, I know it seems dumb looking back. You think, oh well, only these ones appeared in Enterprise and only these ones were in Discovery. But now, in the show that you're making now, do it right, and then you have them all, and it's like, oh well, all of these, it just so happened that we saw those ones then, and it just so happened, but they all exist, and they all, and do the same thing for the Klingons. I have no problem with Discovery-style Klingons appearing in Picard if they are explained to be from a different region, and there are other ones next to them, etc., etc.
that look like Worf, and then maybe others that look like
Yeah,
TOS
have
Klingons that we've
have
never
original
seen
series ones.
again.
The
Discovery
ones that
tries
look
to
like
explain
Genghis
that-
Khan.
They do.
Discovery tries to explain things, but they don't know what they're trying to explain.
Because they're dumb.
They're confused as to what the problem
Stop
is,
it.
and the problem is the people that enjoy Discovery are also confused as to what the problem is.
Because they're dumb.
Because everyone
Wow.
thought that the hair was the problem. No one gives a shit whether your Klingon is bald or not. The problem is it has 2 nostrils and claws,
Right.
and it is not a Klingon.
Your
'Cause they're
Klingon
dumb.
The problem is
looks like a beetle.
biologically it's completely different.
That's
The fact it's
a
bald
quote
does not
to go
changes
down.
nothing.
The problem
The hell
is
does
not
the hair got to
the
do with
problem
it?
is
And
not
then
that
they're like,
they're
oh, we
bald.
fixed the hair.
It's that they have
And-
2
and-
nostrils and claws.
No, it's true.
It is
And then
true.
we smoothed her face slightly. She's all better now. No, because the other moronic
Thank
Klingon
you.
that's behind her is not smoothed out, and he's still. You've just plopped a little bit of like a cabbage plant hair on his extended forehead, his extended face that takes. He looks like a fucking xenomorph.
Yeah,
It's
it's
dumb.
true.
Sean, you must learn to govern your passions.
No,
They will be your
no.
undoing.
My
Go,
boss
Sean,
literally had
go.
a chat with me about this
Yeah.
before we did this discussion. But like when I got off work, there was a discussion about this in his office. you need to calm down sometimes.
That's hilarious.
People get me frustrated. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I do like.
You're allowed to
I do
enjoy
100%.
Discovery and its mistakes.
I do 100% endorse your idea about now. We should just have them appear in varieties. Did you notice the Tellarite in the news crew? Sean?
It's not a Tellarite. It's another
What is it?
species. It's not because it has. See, this is the thing. All right, let me continue on.
I
Tellarites-
just triggered him more.
Tellarites
Welcome
never
to the
had
segment,
tusks.
Sean Rents.
Tellarites never had tusks. And then all of a sudden they add tusks in Discovery because they're the
No, in
they're
Enterprise.
they're the pig.
In Enterprise, the Tellarites in Enterprise, I think, have little.
Oh, they have
tusks.
little tusks but like Discovery
No,
has
no,
this
no.
big ass
Right.
thingy. And then now you're conditioned to every time you see tusks, oh, it's a Tellarite. It was a different species. All right, they had
Okay.
they had I think they had a trill that was nice.
Mm-hmm. That was
there was
cool.
a trill.
That was cool.
But
The makeup artist was
plenty of trill in
from
Discovery.
the makeup artist was from Beta. She was a Beta Zan. I always get that. Like I don't know how to describe.
Yeah.
But
Anyway, whatever. I have beef with the Discovery Klingons, but I wouldn't have beef with seeing them in Discovery if they were, like, as we're saying, kind of just mixed in with other Klingons, and if they show the diversity of each species, which makes more sense than having every Romulan look the same, have the same haircut, wear the same clothes. Which was
that's true about the haircuts. I was really pleased that Harry Treadwell's Romulan had curly, messy hair instead of like the usual bowl cut that we're used to.
Oh, he's
with
so
Romulans.
he's so
that
evil.
He's what?
He's so mean. He's so evil. He's such a villain, isn't he?
I don't know. I think I have hope for him. He's too cute to be bad.
Oh, he's gonna be dead before the end of the season. Don't get your hopes up.
Maybe they think they kill him, but he comes back.
Ooh, but he has a twin. that brother that died, he's not dead.
Oh my god. He says my brother was not a twin, I think. I don't know.
Okay.
Doesn't he? No,
Yeah,
he just says his
actually,
brother,
he
right?
does.
They'll still get
Yeah,
him
he
back
does.
to play his brother anyway.
Yeah.
What did you think? There's a lot of speaking of twins, there's a lot of twins, mirrors, reflections throughout the episode. What were some of the things that what do you think about that, and what were some of the things that stood out to you?
Well, I mentioned in the other discussion that I like the gothic qualities of the story. I mean, obviously the setup for this it's a mystery, right? And the idea of this mysterious woman in a painting, and somebody coming out of mysterious woman coming to Picard, dragging him out of retirement to solve who am I, why am I here? All these things kind of have the trappings of a good gothic mystery, which I liked. And after I said all that, I was thinking, but Picard being more of a fan of the pulpier mysteries, I was trying to think of what other kind of pulp connections there are, and the use of twins is something that happens a lot in like Hitchcock movies or and even some pulp novels, something written by, let's say, Raymond Chandler.
Every soap opera,
which can be very pulpy. Yeah,
every single one.
Days of
space
our
operas.
lives.
I mean, there's a tradition. Space operas too. There's a tradition going
Star
back
Wars.
to Captain Kirk.
Leia, Luke,
Captain
and
Kirk
Leia are
having
twins.
Right.
right,
So
and
saying
Captain
all this,
Kirk having his.
did you expect that? Like when the episode begins, did you expect that Daj had a twin?
No, that was
No.
a surprise to me. That was a big surprise.
Did you expect her to
definitely a
die also?
No,
No, that was a big.
surprise.
I think
I
that
didn't
was
even
a very
believe her
effective
death.
twist.
I thought, no, she's not dead. They're gonna pull something out of their ass and say that she's not dead. But no,
Right.
they actually,
I was expecting her to like rebuild herself or something, but
I thought it was
because like
genius
Sahel and I
on
were
the part
saying,
of the.
we were saying last night that in all the advertisements and stuff, you don't see Soji. You
Yeah.
only see, so it makes it look like Dash is one of the main characters. And so when she died, I was like, oh crap! Like I guess she's not a main character. And that was, to me, was great because TV doesn't do that to me anymore. It's very rare that happens. Most shows are pretty. They do really bad with the advertising where you notice all this stuff beforehand.
I agree with that. I agree with that
But in this
100%.
case, I was generally like, oh, I'm actually like surprised. And then I was also an emotional wreck at that point in the show because everything was just making me happy at that point. And so I think I just nothing, even though I did like.
By the way, that was
My biggest gripe with the show, though, if I have to pick something, we've touched on it a little bit already, where some of the writing felt very, very convenient. Like that whole interview with the news lady in the beginning was just like a giant exposition bomb that I was just like, you couldn't think of a better way to kind of like deliver this information and kind of get to this point. It's like, this is kind of cheap, but at the same time, I didn't care. I was like,
That
Picard's
works.
back!
It works.
Picard's back! I can't
They're trying to do
believe
this
it!
show. They're trying to do this show for us that have seen all of Star Trek, but they're doing this for new people as well. So
Right.
And
It's
they're
hard,
trying to
it's
explain
hard.
the past 20 or 30 years that we haven't seen on the screen. I understand.
Right.
My problem was that was live. No one in their right mind would do that interview live. And
Well-
that serves the single purpose of getting Daj to see Picard. I mean, especially if you want to weave a narrative that Picard is somehow, the bad guys. I mean, you would film it and then edit it in post, and then make him look bad. It's a bit of a strange thing to have it.
Yeah.
To have it live, I found.
Yeah. 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 I agree with that. I think
It was
one of
live. It's a forgivable offense, though, because it does work beautifully in the sense that there is the exchange
It's
that
a
we talked
detail.
about. Yeah, well, not just that, like, the Dunkirk piece, the Dunkirk part, I thought was brilliant, like, just, like, as a commentary on, news and media today.
I love
Like,
that.
there is a lot of this where, like, when she makes the comparison to the pyramids, it's cool, because in one sense, like, it does set up that, yeah, this was, like, a monumental type of effort. But then when he says, well, but don't you think Dunkirk's more appropriate? And she's like, Dunkirk. Like, she doesn't know what it is. And that's like a huge, like, to not know what Dunkirk is and to not make that an obvious comparison to a rescue armada says a lot about the society that, says a lot about the interviewer. I mean, she must be one of the best interviewers to be able to land this
I
interview
hope
with
not.
Picard in the first place. Well, she has to. I mean, like, how do you land landing an interview with Picard? But that's what I'm saying is, if that's the best of the reporters right now, it's reflective of our times too, because we don't have quite these like legendary reporters like Walter Cronkite, or we were talking about sadly
Jim Lehrer.
Jim Lehrer passed away, and he was also a great
But I
journalist
feel like those
of our time. It's like
they would be open.
Barbara
they would be
Walters.
they wouldn't be outright racist like she is, right?
I don't know that she was. You love to throw that word racist out, but I think it's a little more xenophobic. Like, it's more nationalist. Like, the Federation first is. I hope they don't say that, by the way, but it is that kind of like.
Well, it's implied.
mentality.
No, she says
it's implied.
She says
right.
Romulan lives as if Romulan lives were lesser lives.
Right.
Well, right, she does say that, but I don't know that she means. I don't know.
Species.
I don't know. I mean, I see what you're saying, but like, I think she's just taught to be a nationalist in a sense, like the Federation first, like our resources first. And Picard's like trying to emphasize like it's just lives. There's not like Romulan lives or Federation.
Yeah, but
lives
if
or
I were
Klingon
to
lives,
if I would if in the same situation, if I were to say Australian lives or
Those
you know what I mean?
people.
It would come across the same way. It would come
But I
across
mean,
as, oh, wait a minute,
but
or
like
Asian lives, it would come across as very
but like the
racist,
thing,
wouldn't it?
what's different? I guess what's different is that like yeah, sure. I guess in a sense, we're still very homogenous in these like continents, in these continental zones, but more and more humans are not as homogenous. Like, especially in the United States, you can't say that like American lives. When you say that, like, that means a lot of different ethnicities, right? Like, you don't think of anymore, you don't think of Americans as a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, right? Like, that idea of an American is gone. Now when you think Americans, you think like me. I'll look at this diversity. Well, you're not American, sorry, Sean, but like like.
Well, as someone that's not from the US, I've never thought of the United States as Anglo-Saxon, like white. I've never thought of the US.
There was
that
a
way.
long time ago though where that was the prominent.
There are people who want it to be, unfortunately.
And there are people who certainly want it to be, but
Which is very strange.
but-
It's like literally a nation built on everyone coming to it.
But you know what?
that's not necessarily.
But I think there was some.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe the reporter was kind of like the Fox News of the future, because she has some animosity towards Romulans and like the idea of like helping those people in their time of need.
Right.
There's, I was thinking about that, and I was comparing the Romulans to Klingons in my head, and obviously in Star Trek 6, there was pushback on the idea of like, helping the Klingons. Come on, what are we doing?
Right.
Even Kirk and the others like, oh God, the Klingons.
Let them die.
Let them
Kirk
die.
has that personal beef, though, doesn't he?
Kirk has that
Yeah,
personal
but
beef,
still.
but Admiral Cartwright and a lot of other
like
people.
even like relating it to the U.S., like the Marshall Plan after World War II. Not everybody was for it. Helping our
Not
people
everybody was for it.
whose asses we just whooped. Like, screw those people.
Exactly.
Some people
It's
want to
very-
take them over. Like, oh, this is our chance to take control.
Exactly, which is what we saw in Star Trek 6.
Right.
So then I'm thinking, okay, well, let's look at the Romulans. Well, the Romulans, in a way, have a much longer history of being the enemy of Starfleet and the Federation than even the Klingons, if you think about it. Because the Klingons, obviously, at some point, the Federation and the Klingons made some kind of, achieved some kind of peace, even though every once in a while the Klingons would be like, oh, fuck you, I'm going to go attack the S9 or whatever. Right, non-aggression pact. But the Romulans, let's think about it. During the Dominion War, the Romulans weren't they kind of playing both sides at one point? And like they weren't very trustworthy and
well, yeah, but there's like joint efforts, like for example the Defiance cloaking
there's joint
device,
efforts, but we couldn't really trust them.
It was moving towards. It kind of seemed like it was moving in part towards another. Eventually, the Romulans and the Federation would kind of come together, but then this thing happens.
But then this thing happens, and then
there's
look
hints
at
of that
Nemesis,
in Nemesis, where Commander Dinatra, she's like she ends on that note of like maybe more missions to come, or something
more
like that.
More missions to come, but that comes in the wake of what? Of Shinzon basically heading right for Earth to frickin' destroy the planet. I mean, all of that stuff has to, that's all part of
taking over the Romulan Senate. Well,
right.
Killing the Romulans.
But you're right. It must.
But see, from an Earth person's point, I'm thinking like Trip. If I were Trip from Enterprise, I would see like, those fucking Romulans, they're always trying to destroy us. Fuck them. That's the way I think.
Right.
And by the time we get to the show, to Picard, I think
that's the reporter.
That's the reporter. Is like, what?
That's Megyn Kelly.
Thank you. There we go. Perfect.
Or Ben Shapiro.
Right. So now, of course, Picard himself sees it, more from a globalist point of view or galacticalist point of view.
But he also has a very intimate relationship with the Romulans.
And he has a more intimate relationship.
Picard's
and of course,
one of those libtards.
Wow. But he's got Spock's. Doesn't he have part of Spock in him?
Spock's cadre, a little bit.
So that I feel also pushes Picard to be more open-minded and all that stuff. So I think that's going to be one of the underlying themes of the show, obviously. But in a way, I kind of understand how the Federation has reached a point where someone would go on TV and say Romulan lives, because let's think, remember, didn't they fight a war where they didn't even see the Romulans for how long?
Yeah, the 100 Years War, I think, or something like that.
Right. So they are kind of, they've always been the other, even more than the Klingons, and they have more of a history of opposing rather than just, okay, can we just get along? But they're always like, screw you. No, we want to.
My issue there was that, like, Picard. Okay, in situations like this, a person like Picard would have like a publicist or something, and if they don't want a question asked, that interview ends immediately.
Yeah. Well, but if it's live, it's hard. The publicist is supposed to be like, but it didn't happen.
Well,
like
Picard does.
Like R. Kelly.
Picard does end it. He makes his like awesome statement, and he gets really angry, and he's like, and we're done here, and he walks away.
And then he angrily gets up and walks away.
It takes like 10 minutes for him to get up. I'm angry.
I think it would have been great.
Maybe it just affected me on a personal level.
I think it would have been great if he would have said, just like on accident, "Get her off my bridge."
Okay, that's just being senile.
He starts having the all good things, like time hopping thing happening.
Because later on they find him on a roof. Like, what are you doing?
The aromatic syndrome.
Fire phasers! She's just like, what?
Mr. Wolf, get her off my bridge.
The dreams that he's having with Data, I think they're going to happen throughout the season, and I really love that Data. I really love that Data's there. Could it be? We talked about this last night on our Drunk Picard podcast. I can't remember. I can't believe I remember so much. I must not have been as drunk as I thought. But so it appears that the B4. In the expanded universe, whatever you want to call it, the comics or whatever, the B4 expresses Data, and Data can come through the B4, and then I think some weird thing happens, like Data sacrifices himself for the B4. I forget. I don't remember. But Data becomes captain of the Enterprise, I think, in the comics, and like Data comes back, is fully back.
Well, yeah, obviously that's been thrown out the window.
Well, we don't know. So it looks like so we didn't know what. I mean, this is now, we're establishing events now, and so what it appears based on what Dr. Girardi said was, it looks like they got a hold of the B4 and they had to shelve him because of the ban on synthetics. So Data never really got to express through B4. The B4 shut down, so we'll never, like, that development, maybe it was a slow process. Maybe Data, what were you calling it, the corrective algorithm or something, was is trying to go in and like match with the B4's, like upgrade the B4's positronic neural net or something like that. But because they shut him down, this never happened. So I got really excited at the possibility that Data's in there. Data's like in there in that box and could possibly come back.
And that's
Data's
important.
dead. Yeah,
that has meaning in Star Trek, and I don't like the idea.
Does it? Because Spock was dead too. Like he's able to come back. Like
need to mean
in
something.
A sense, it is the Kotrick, but it's a parallel of Spock putting his Katra in McCoy. Data put all his data into the B4. I like that you're just really like
upset. They both look really upset.
It's because
like,
I don't
what
like
if the whole season is a plan by Data that he put in this program so that they can find his head that survived the blast.
I tell you what, I believe in the writers and I believe in the show enough to know that it's not that.
Or they put it on the end of a new Enterprise D. It's like, I'll take care of driving the ship, Captain. Well, I'll be like, no!
He's like a masthead. He's like a living masthead.
Yeah, or like a hood ornament. Dude actually drives the ship.
Is this synthetic enough for you?
Oh my goodness. Wow. So no, you're against that.
I'm against.
I
don't like the idea that
oh god.
I don't like the idea that Data would either kind of replace B4 in his own body or manifest through B4, because I don't think that's something that he would do. He would rather be dead and let B4 live his life and kind of grow and expand the way he can. But I think B4 was deactivated before the ban on synthetics anyway. Because I think his program wasn't built to take in so much information and he was collapsing. And so they just shut him down, put him in a drawer, and they were developing new androids, and then the ban happened.
So the whole season is going to be about putting B4 back together because Picard thinks Data's in there. And
I would very much like to...
When they finally reconnect him, B4's head turns and goes, "Oh, Sakai is ready." Boom,
it's Musaka. It's Musaka. It's Musaka, not Osaka. It's Musaka.
Is ready. Season 2 coming next year.
So he has to become the moon god again? Is that what it is? He has to put on the mask of...
The whole season is that episode stretched out into 10
He has to
hours.
put the mask on Enkyo. He has to become Enkyo.
Brent Spiner's like, I'm going to win my damn Emmy. I don't care what it takes.
Has Brent Spiner already won an Emmy, though?
No, he hasn't.
He should have.
Oh,
he should have, in my opinion, for many episodes. But he hasn't.
It's true, I agree. Shout out to Brent Spiner. I don't think enough is being said, especially by me, because there's so much exciting stuff happening in Picard.
We haven't even done the synopsis yet.
We're not doing the synopsis.
We're gonna get a synopsis before this episode.
Alice and Pill was my favorite from.
Yeah, I agree with you. 100%.
No, she was standout too. Yeah, Doctor. But Brent Spiner does a great job
and
with bringing Data back.
I think her dialogue worked the best as well. It was the Daj and boyfriend moment that I didn't so much appreciate. They didn't have any chemistry.
They had no chemistry. Yeah, you're right.
And the dialogue was weird. I don't like the use of the word "dude."
You would have thought that would have gone away by the 25th century.
I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of like the reporter.
Dude,
I think that I think of the 25th century. Everyone is so much better than me and better than us. And then they're saying "dude," and they're being prejudiced and so.
The trend too, where even in Star Wars, where that was one of my gripes with like the Force Awakens, was that when you watch the original trilogy, I'm not sure about the prequels because I haven't really watched them and I never will. But when you watch the original trilogy, it doesn't sound like they're in the 70s. They wrote those movies in the 70s.
Right.
But no one's saying groovy. No one's saying all that modern speak was.
Can you imagine?
Erased in the Force Awakens.
This lightsaber is so groovy.
And in like modern Star Trek,
it feels like
it's modern. There's a lot of modern speak, and it's like, dude, it's 400 years in the future.
What was like an example? Because I can't think of one.
The dude thing that he just mentioned.
No. In the Force Awakens, they don't say dude.
It's not the Force Awakens. No. In The Last Jedi, they do the phone call prank thing.
They do the phone call prank. In The Force Awakens, there's a lot of, particularly Finn, it's like, woo, yeah! You know, it's very like Will Smith.
Lando does that, and so does Han. Like, Lando's like, woo! When they, when they
go woo?
When they get out of the Death Star, when they like escape the Death Star, and they're flying out, and he's like,
when does Lando go woo?
More specific.
He does go woo, and then also Lando just kind of like looks at Princess Leia in a very 70s way.
But like stuff like the phone prank in The Last Jedi was like, what is this, like the 90s? You know,
yeah,
he's talking
like
about
Jerky Boys or something.
Yeah, Jerky Boys, kind of like what?
Star Trek is Star Trek, just like Star Wars, is interesting in that way.
I can't believe that Jerky Boys are old.
The what?
Like, you don't even know what the Jerky Boys are, do you?
The Jerky Boys.
They were the first
You say that with such judgment in your voice.
Not at all.
You don't even know what the Jerky Boys are.
It's true. The Jerky Boys were the first successful prank call album. Like, everyone bought it. Like, it was just an album of them prank calling businesses and people.
Instead of music, you had prank calls.
Yeah, it was like...
This was avant-garde. This was before YouTube.
At the risk of turning this into a Jerky Boys retrospective,
do we have a synopsis?
No, I wanted to bring up another thing, an issue I had with the episode, which was the necklace. I like the idea of the necklace, but I don't think it's that impressive looking that everybody's like Picard's like, oh, what a beautiful necklace.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
And he's kind of like, and then she's like, oh look, and then the other guy, the Romulan on the Borg cube's like, oh, look at your necklace. It doesn't. It's just two little rings. Like, I don't know. I thought it should have been more impressive to garner such attention, and then when it's shown,
I think
to
the thing that
I
think what brings the necklace. I think what brings the necklace to. I
mean, I like the idea. Don't get me wrong, but
I think what brings the necklace to both. In both situations, I have to watch again, but I think in both situations, what brings the necklace to Soji is actually playing with it, so that kind of like makes sense that he would be like, oh, like let me look at that, because she's actually calling attention to it by how she's always like touching it, and then she tells a story about how she and her sister had one or whatever, her father gave it to them, but then with Picard's, I forget what it is, but she actually takes it off and gives it to him. And I forget the scene, but it's in that scene where he's like trying to calm her down. He's like, number one, and so I feel like in both instances it made sense that the necklace would come up. But you're right, it's not extraordinary. I mean, it's just two.
And then he shows it again to.
Well, Girardi is the one who's like, that's the symbol for neuro pairing, blah blah blah.
Right, but why would he even think
by the necklace itself, though?
Right, no, she's not. But the idea that Picard would even.
Is this.
Right, but the idea that Picard would even think to. Oh, by the way, let me show you this necklace.
But it's the only thing that he has left of her. Like, I understand that because she's disappeared entirely. Like, she just became nothingness.
That's true.
And the only thing that he has left is this necklace. So he's like, maybe it's a clue. This is Picard, right? He's always looking for the clue. So
that's true.
He pulls it out, watches it. He shows it to her. She's unimpressed. She's like, oh, well, that symbol means something. But other than that, and then it transitions into the two rings being in space.
Is that the
That was
remnants
impressive.
Of the,
That was a nice little.
But are the
that was a nice
two
little
rings in space because that's what supernovas look like when they explode sometimes? Could those be the remnants of the supernova? That would be neat if it were. I don't know. It could just be another.
I wouldn't park my cube so
phenomenon.
close to to where Romance
it's far.
destroyed.
Oh, it's far away. But what I'm saying is, you would see an event. You know, like right now.
Oh yeah, you'd see it from far away. Fair enough.
You would see it from far away. An event like a
That just
supernova
means
could
anything.
happen.
Oh shit! Picard, the short series.
Betelgeuse, which is a star that we see in the Orion constellation, is threatening to supernova, and it may happen in our lifetimes. If it does happen, it would be an event that we would all be able to we would see it with our naked eye, like a much brighter star. I think it might actually outshine Sirius. Is Sirius our brightest star? I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it would actually outshine Sirius, and I don't remember who said this or where I read this, but it could also might actually be visible in the daytime. So it would be like a little dot that you would see.
That's cool. It wouldn't be too. It wouldn't be. Oh, what a disappointment! It wouldn't be two big green rings.
Well, not to the naked eye, but there are supernova remnants. They all take different weird shapes and things like that, and I think that the two rings are based on one pattern that we've actually observed. Of a remnant of a supernova, or
That's
like
cool.
the aftermath.
You know what? That adds a lot. If it's not just because it was a nice visual thing.
It was.
But if
The
it,
transition
if it,
from the-
if,
yeah.
if they took it even further, and if it's not just the visual transition, if it's even more, and it is the remnants of the supernova, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys, how do you feel? Because I said it in the other thing. I always rank first episodes with the other first episodes. The Cage and Encounter Farpoint. Like, where does this? And obviously, we haven't seen. I think this is supposed to be a 3-parter altogether, right? Because it was
Ruben
shown
was
to
pointing
the
out
reporters or to the critics.
Yeah,
as a
Ruben was pointing out
3-parter.
that that's actually a trend, is that they'll front load a lot of shows with a lot of cool things in the first 3 episodes, because that's what they...
Where they do with every show basically does it. What they do is they release the first 3 episodes to critics, and then then the critics review it as the whole season, basically. Mm-hmm. And so what a lot of shows do, like this was not. I haven't watched it yet, but supposedly the new Twilight Zone was like this, where what they do is they front load the first 3 episodes with all the juicy shit, so that the critics review it as, holy cow, this series is amazing. But then episode 4 through 10 is like,
That's not going to happen with Picard.
Whatever.
I don't try.
Episodes 4, 5, and 6 are directed by Frakes, so.
Oh, really?
Whoa,
4,
that's
5,
good.
and 6?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't feel
So
like
they're
it's
doing
gonna
That's good for him.
continue.
They were supposed.
Wow.
They were supposed to do two. They were supposed to have 5 directors that did 2 each, but for some reason that got twisted up. So what you're talking about is it's not a 3-parter episode. It's just that the 3 first ones are kind of a chapter that's going on Earth, and they're all directed by Hanali Culpepper. She's called.
Right.
So she directed the first 3.
I
And
called her
Frakes-
Hanel, so apologies, Hanali
Yeah.
Culpepper.
And
By the
then
way,
so-
Hanali Culpepper was so awesome on
She
Twitter.
was.
She was liking everything and talking to
She's amazing.
folks and stuff. She's very nice.
I've become a
and she's
fan
a great
of her.
director.
Now, well, we've only seen the first hour. How do you feel it ranks with other setups for a new Star Trek show?
I think it's the best.
I was when
Wow.
we talked last, Humbert, I still had Deep Space Nine as my favorite, but I'm gonna hold out to give it the final. But like the more I watch Picard, the more like I'm obsessed with it. So like maybe being in this, what is it called, a recency bias, perhaps,
Hype.
the hype as it's called. Yeah, my recency bias, my hype is I'm just obsessed with this. Like I can't stop thinking about it, and there's so many layers. And I think that for me, what I'd rather do, if we're allowed, if we have to rank it, I'm pretty sure I'm going to give it the number 1 spot. But if what I'd rather do, I think it's peerless. I heard someone say, or I saw someone say this on Twitter. I think it's peerless in the sense that it really is genuinely doing something completely different from any other opener that we've ever seen on Star
I would
Trek.
agree with
Like,
that. Yeah, it is very different.
So
to the other
I almost want to now draw the line. The line must be drawn here, no further. I kind of.
To me, it's. I mean, I still think I put Deep Space Nine and maybe Voyager 1 and 2. and then this, but it was a different era of TV, so it was like Deep Space Nine and Voyager were 2-hour premieres, you know. So it was more time. You had to establish more characters. The formula of the show.
They were
was
essentially
there.
movies. Yeah.
The formula for new Star Trek isn't there yet. So like, Discovery, the first episode, which is all I've seen, is the first hour, did nothing for me. I didn't hate it, but I was like, I'm not gonna run out and get CBS All Access for it.
Well, for all it tries to change, Discovery still did follow the Star Trek formula. It still is, you know, people on a ship, and they still do the 2-hour setup.
It's mixed with the modern J.J. Abrams kind of style storytelling, which I think it was a mistake. Whereas Picard seems to have modernized the formula.
This is the Star Trek that I've been wanting.
Right. It's the modern version of Next Generation, essentially. It's calm, it's patient. It's not trying to blow things up every 2 seconds. Like there's no lens flare. There's no like.
There are a few, but they're tastefully done.
It's not every 2 seconds like lens flare. You like it? Here's more of it. You know.
When you look at modern
we spent
television,
100 years to fix cameras, so they won't do this, but we're bringing it back. Fuck it.
When you look at modern television, this is really what this is what you expect. And this is what I wanted Star Trek to be before Discovery came out. I was like,
this feels like we often compare Star Trek when it came back after 12 some odd years. We were like, I think Sean and I were really hopeful that like it would live up to the level of quality and storytelling and etc. that The Expanse does. And this to me is an offering from Star Trek that like goes head to head with shows like The Expanse. Like it's a show that I think is so compelling, at least for me, that I just can't wait. Like I really wish they had dropped the whole season, because that's all I would be doing. It's
and
like,
the way
what?
the show,
weekly is better.
The way the show
no, it is better.
had like
Detective.
Discovery to me is too gritty, and yet at the same time Picard had a dude getting stabbed in the chest with a freaking knife. You know, but it's not depressing the way they do it. It's just storytelling. Whereas
it's trying to appeal to different people.
Right.
It's trying to appeal to Discovery is like the Titans or Doom Patrol of Star Trek, right? They're trying to.
I don't even know what those are.
Discovery is the Doom Patrol. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, of the Star Trek universe.
Of Star Trek.
I mean, it also maybe also Picard benefits from Discovery.
It's trying to be dark. It's trying to be gritty.
I greatly enjoy that analogy. I like that.
It's trying to appeal to a younger audience, but it doesn't really work for Star Trek specifically. I mean, Riverdale is a thing. It's a show. People love it. But that doesn't necessarily mean it'll work within the universe of Star Trek. However, True Detective and American Crime Story, which are they're like short seasons. They're like 10 episode or 8 episode seasons, and they're all based on a mystery. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing can be applied to Star Trek in the sense that all you have to do is just have it in space instead of a mystery all happening in one state. In the United States, you have it happen in a few different planets and what have you. And so I think that format and that style can very much be applied. And that's the vibe that I'm getting from the Star Trek. It's modern enough to also attract people that don't like Star Trek necessarily. Like, you don't have to know Star Trek or even enjoy Star Trek before this to be able to watch this Picard entry. Which I don't think is possible for Deep Space Nine. Like, you couldn't watch the Deep Space... If you're not interested in Star Trek already, the pilot to Deep Space Nine is probably a very hard in.
But I mean, if you don't really know about Data and about Romulans and stuff like that, I mean, do you think somebody who doesn't know, particularly Data, that threat?
So, I just watched The Witcher.
I do think
the Romulan thing's easy to understand. Those are kind of the former bad guys. They had a tragedy.
But you don't need to know that. You don't need to, like...
No, but you need to understand his relationship with Data to really understand that kind
Not
of
necessarily.
connection.
As I said, I just watched The Witcher I just watched the full season of The Witcher. I've never played the games. I've never read the books. The first episode is confusing as hell. There's a lot going on. You're introducing a lot of characters, a lot of different timelines.
Right.
There's a lot of like intertwined plot lines going on, wars, character story arcs, and then as the season progresses, you slowly understand and you get more used to the universe that you're experiencing. That's just watching a new show. That's what watching a new show is. You're discovering and learning all of these new things. And I think that the fact that Star Trek has so much before this intimidates people. But
I think
It might, yeah.
Well, I mean, in defense of Deep Space Nine, I think Deep Space Nine is actually possibly the most, maybe overall the most accessible one because, one, it's the best show of all of them, and two, you're distracting me, Sal. Will you please stop doing that?
Fonts. We loved fonts from back then.
God's sakes, I'm trying to complete a thought here, and he's just, here, look at the books I have. Ooh. I have those same fucking books too, okay? But I'm not.
No, you don't. He took them all.
Carry on.
Hey, Humber's like, I had that book too.
Hey, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
No,
Carry
All of
on.
a sudden, the
Carry
things
on.
behind you start disappearing.
Yeah, right.
Stealing them through time.
Oh my God. Go away. Go pester Dr. McCoy. So I agree with Sean with the idea that Picard is obviously going to be a very different show than, Star Trek, Next Generation, Voyager, Enterprise. They're all very ship-bound shows. They're essentially the same show, different characters. Deep Space Nine was the one that tried to do something different, and then Picard is going to be very different because, let's face it, it's about Picard. The other shows have it's implied that it's going to be an ensemble piece. It's supposed to be about these group of characters, but at the end of the day, this show is going to be about this one guy.
The opening credits that you hate.
He's in the freaking right.
He's
it's like
in
Doctor
the
Who.
opening
It's
credits,
like, his face is right there on the screen.
Only the sixth and seventh
Right,
Doctor,
like,
only the sixth, the fourth through the sixth Doctor do that. I think, but
exactly. So it's
like
going to be
3D
about.
TV. I could have been like,
My God.
So I feel this is going to be a very unique Star Trek show because we've never really had a show, or I would, like this, where it's really about the journey of this one guy, this one character, and it's going to be interesting because he is an older character, so it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be as space hopping and adventurous as some of the other ones. But
they're smart. They set up some of the characters along the way for spin-offs.
Possibly. There we go. Yeah. I would think so.
I think that's what you guys said in the other discussion. You guys talked about how, Picard will be at the center of the action, but he's not the one necessarily that will be doing the action.
Right.
Yeah, he'll have characters orbiting him, and they'll be the ones that are kind
doing
of
the
getting
fist
things done,
fights and yeah.
Because
we haven't met him yet, but clearly, or it seems like, rather, I shouldn't say clearly, but it seems like Elnor, is it Elnor? The Romulan character played by Evan Evagora he's
that the Orlando Bloom looking guy from
like that guy, the
Legolas.
Yeah, so he has
Legolas.
Space Legolas.
So it seems like
Space
Space Legolas is protecting him in much the same way that Legolas protected.
They showed it in the action, like 2 seconds before he started gasping when they were running up the stairs. I was like, come on, man, they cannot have him doing stuff. But
not only that was heartbreaking.
If all of a sudden Picard's like, boom, boom, fighting and doing all this stuff. But when they showed that, I was like, okay, good. They're going to have the action happen around him, and he's kind of
But it's realistic.
But maybe the whole episode,
maybe
the whole series is about him trying to get that drug that turns him young, like in that one episode. I took all of it, Picard.
Now, let me just say, if this show were Star Trek Kirk, it would be the opposite. Kirk would have been the one out there punching out the Romulans. Still, even
they would have added the humor. He would have still. He would have still stopped and caught his breath because there would have been the humor that he's tired, but he still would have been doing it.
But he still would have been like,
before the fight
Which is
begins, he just rips
you
his
guys
shirt off,
forget
get
that's
it done.
exactly.
Generations,
Right,
like, you guys forget we got that in Generations. Like we totally got Kirk.
Did we?
You know
Mega
what I
defying all
miss?
odds. Defying all odds to like.
You know what-
you know,
what I
like-
You
kinda
can
miss
edit
is-
Liam Neeson, the 80-year-old Liam Neeson fighting and taking. You can do anything.
I kind of miss, in the one of my criticisms was, of course, when they activate, it's kind of like the Bourne identity. It's like,
That's a bit corny.
I kind of miss the fighting styles that you would see on Star Trek. How like Riker would just be like, or Kirk or the up. Like I wish they would bring some of that back.
Like elbow punch thing, like.
Yeah,
that's
I kind of
Starfleet
miss
Well,
training.
Worf also loved this move, like right in your face. Like,
Right.
I was like, what
I wish I'd seen some of that, like when taking on. I think that would have been a nice little visual
a little homage.
It should be like or even
It
if
would be
Picard
fun.
had
It
done
would
it.
be fun if
It's a
some-
very
some,
simple
like-
move. Picard
fun
could do it
for-
himself still.
Or he
A
fights
bunch of security officers come and try to pull these moves on someone, and then the other one's just like punches them normally. what are you doing with
I'm
your...
gonna go old school. I'm just gonna, right? Yeah, I'd appreciate that. I think that'd be nice.
I love that recalls for some reason I recalled the Star Trek 3 Sulu versus the guards scene,
Don't
which
call
I
me
love,
tiny.
and he just don't call me tiny. Yeah, I do.
Now,
Wow.
we're reaching the 2-hour mark, so I think we do need
No,
to
yeah,
wrap it up.
we gotta wrap
But
it up soon.
I do want to ask, because at the beginning of the thing we were talking about AI and synths and all this stuff. Obviously, the Borg are going to be central
this.
to whatever's going on here. How do we feel? How do the Borg fit into this idea of synths? I mean, if they banned synthetic life, whatever that is meant to be, is some of that also kind of a prejudice against or a fear of Borg?
Well, I'm
you know,
wondering
and-
if Maddox maybe, because Voyager, when they got back, they had all sorts of information on the nanoprobes and Borg stuff. So what if Maddox? That's how Maddox completed the next data.
Is with Borg technology.
With Borg technology, and then that's what freaked everybody out.
He was jacking nanoprobes from 7 of 9.
Yeah, he bought some illegal
Well-
nanoprobes and.
I was thinking is in First Contact, Data was. I mean, they were trying to infiltrate his brain, right? In First Contact, when he, but they never did, or I don't remember. I haven't seen First Contact in a while. Did they
What-
ever
what
manage
occurred
to?
is-
She was playing mind games on him.
She was hoping to condition him by giving him sensations like pleasure and
real skin.
like
But could the Borg
real
have
skin,
something
things
of
like that.
Data somewhere?
Well, they have.
No,
that-
I don't think they
have
actually
that-
downloaded.
I don't
Remember,
think
they
we
were
will see-
They drilled into his head, but they never actually got access because at the end, like Picard thought he was infiltrated, but he's like, oh, they didn't actually. I only thought about her offer for like 0.06 seconds, which is an eternity to an android or whatever. Funny moment, but it looks like they weren't able to access his systems in the end.
Okay.
I don't think we'll see the Borg the way we're used to seeing the Borg. Like, I don't think we're going to see the Borg collective in that sense. I think that the only
Isn't it
Borg
decimate? Didn't Janeway decimate the Borg in the Delta Quadrant?
I think she gave them like a crippling blow or something. But
Right,
the
right.
Borg are not here now. Like, if the Borg are here now, then it has to be a story about the Borg attacking. They don't just hang around the Alpha Quadrant.
Or like
the
after
Beta
it could be.
Quadrant, right?
Well, I mean, like
Playing
capturing
cards,
a Borg
right?
cube.
Yeah.
Capturing a Borg cube is a big deal. Like the Romulans seem to
Right.
have this Borg cube. There's other suggestions. So I'm wondering if like whatever happened in the Delta Quadrant crippled the network of the Borg, and then there's these stragglers in the Alpha and Beta Quadrant, and they're captured. Like the Romulans captured them. Like because the Romulans were kind of on the edge of, if you look at the maps, like
If you
the
look at the map,
Romulans.
I feel like they're constantly at war with the Borg, but on the other side, like
On the other side,
beefing with
yeah,
us,
the-
but then they've got us. But then
Yeah,
they've got
they're
their
kind of holding back.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of holding back the Borg, and so after whatever happened with Janeway, it could be that was the crippling kind of like blow, as you suggested, and then they were able to so there was a blip in all the Borg systems, and they're like, oh shit, let's capture these things. And you can see in one of the trailers, there's a sign that says no assimilations in such and such since such a start date. I forget what it was. Do you remember that, like, Sean?
I remember that shot. I now that I've seen the show, I don't understand how that's relevant to anything. I think the only Borg we're going to see are non-collective Borgs. I think that,
like the Hugh Borgs.
Yeah, I think we're just going to be following like a group of Borg that are no longer part of the collective. They're Hugh followers, or maybe, as you say, a bunch of straggler Borg that all regained their individuality but all felt kind of lost, and so they all created a home for themselves together. I think that's really what we're going to see. We're not going to see the Queen or the collective or the Borg here to assimilate or take over, because that's a plot in itself.
Right, I don't think so either. I mean, the Borg are obviously involved in some way because 7 of 9's there and Hugh's there, and the Romulan reclamation site's a Borg ship sort of looking thing.
Cube, yeah.
I
think it is a Borg
maybe
cube. I think it's
maybe repercussions of their technology. It's not the Borg directly. It's just, because the nanoprobes I don't remember the Voyager episode exactly, but they the Ferengi were trying to get them to sell them in this episode of Voyager. They were trying to get a copy of 7 of 9's nanoprobes.
Yeah.
Because they were special. So maybe that's
another thing
that and then these Romulans, there's a sect of Romulans who are still angry, trying to bring synthetics back under their control to kind of reclaim the Romulan Empire.
I don't yet see the connection between the Romulans and the synthetics.
Other than they probably hate them because the synthetics ruined the rescue armada, and so they probably think that that was the cause of why they weren't saved. But also, going back to that Borg ship that we see at the end, there is that interesting aspect that it looks like, again, a captured Borg ship, because there's this huge hole in it that has like a temporary shield, so it looks like it was blasted and then it was disabled and then it was taken over. So there's all, because like a Borg ship would have rebuilt itself, it had it, so this one's definitely inactive in some way, and it's now being used for possibly nefarious purposes, possibly not. I mean, Soji doesn't seem like an evil character. Like, what's she doing with the Romulans? Why is she even there? There's like so many questions. Like, why was Daj on Earth, like thinking she was a student, like just not knowing she was an android? She was a student about to go to the Daystrom Institute, and Soji seems a little bit further along. Like, Soji's working, she's not, like, they have two very different lives. Like, are their fathers even the same thing? Did Maddox have a hand in both? Is Maddox the father that they think that they have? You know what I mean? Like, is that who it is? Like,
Those are the fathers.
It's also interesting too because the guys who come to kidnap her in the beginning, they come to kidnap her originally when they think she's not active. Then she whoops all their asses, and the next time they come to kill her.
Right.
So they wanted her pre.
They also say, "Where are the others?" Like, what are they referring to?
We called them, because that's what I called them.
Yeah, they actually, the replicants. They actually,
the replicants are loose, and these Romulans are coming to get them. Ninja Romulans.
So maybe they're ban enforcement.
There we go.
Well, also, maybe again, if the ban on synthetics was initiated as a galactic treaty, and the Romulan, these could be like Romulans that are like hardcore about it. They don't just want to like. They're hunters, basically hunting out synthetics, and like maybe because of the ban on synthetics, that's why Maddox or whoever created Daj made her so realistic, made them both so realistic, where they bleed. I mean, she bleeds. She she has a gash. It can be healed. The idea is that like she's way further more advanced, whereas like. Who knows? Yeah. So like the point is that maybe that's why she doesn't know she's an android, and they implanted these memories in her so that she would fit right in and not be noticeable be allowed to live. And they somehow know her. I wonder if there's like a little time travel going on too.
Star Trek, baby.
Who knows?
It's Star Trek, baby.
Yeah, Star Trek loves time travel. I know you're shaking your head, but
God,
It's Star Trek, baby. You gotta have some time travel, baby. Come on, just a little sprinkle of time travel on top of it.
No.
I truly wish Star Trek stopped doing time travel altogether. Just like
I know.
Stop it.
I actually wouldn't mind if the time travel stopped either.
It takes away from like
true.
I don't know, the credibility of it all, or I don't know.
He's like sprinkling time travel on, just a sprinkle. It's just a
No.
dash of time travel.
No.
It's like-
Go away.
Discovery has time
Alright.
travel. Right? Does Discovery end with time travel?
I think.
Yeah,
I think in
didn't do it well.
Let's not. We don't even know now. Okay, before we wrap it up, yeah, Discovery is going to be very interesting. How season 3 ties into all.
Are we
this,
gonna
but,
rate this?
No, it's not.
I think Ruben and I have like insane ratings.
No, we gotta
so
rate
you
it.
guys-
It's tradition. We gotta rate
And
it.
I'm gonna
Alright.
give it the rating
So-
I gave it last night.
He gave,
We're gonna
so
rate
go,
it.
So I'm gonna
I
not
already
go
know
first.
what your rating is, Hal, of course.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go first for once. So Ruben, give your
yours
insane
is a
rating.
big fat 10, isn't it?
I gave it
No.
infinity plus forever. Right? Was that
That's what your rating
Infinity
was.
plus
it?
forever.
Infinity plus
See,
forever.
Sean,
amazing.
you and I are the only ones that can bring balance to this.
I mean, I have to watch it again. I've only watched it once, so
Yeah,
to me,
the hype
to me,
is
have
real.
to
It's
bring-
recency
You have to
bias.
deal with this alone.
we have to bring this.
Before.
We have to ground this in
But
reality.
if I'm gonna
Okay,
come
but
back down,
okay.
I'd still a 10.
So I want to I want to point out one thing. I want to. I want to
Perfect
point out
episode.
one thing, which is Ruben is more like the rest of you all normally.
Most of
If
the
you
time.
look at his Starfleet Boy record, he's actually pretty critical and fair when it comes to the ratings. There are times where I've convinced him to give an episode a 10, but that was one where Sean even gave it a 10, which
I
is
also,
the Pegasus.
I
so
also
like,
chose all my favorite episodes to be on Starfleet Boy. So
yeah, that's true. You kind of like So
I was
there's
like, I
a
don't wanna
little
talk
bit of
crap
that.
about
I was thinking about that yesterday. I was actually looking at the Pegasus rating. I was like, it's a great episode, but why the hell did I give it a 10? Like, what went through my
did.
mind
The hype-
at that
you
point
were-
that I gave it a 10? I think back and
the
I'm like, all right.
euphoria of the
The
Look, there's
euphoria is
nothing
the
wrong with
hype.
the episode. It's everything is great in that episode. It's just that looking at the number 10 on my screen, I was like, I gave it a 10 out of 10. I don't know. Anyway,
It's on
you gotta
record.
be careful with these guys. That you get carried away.
look, they're a bad influence.
Yeah,
they make
they are.
good
They are
ratings.
indeed.
As far as
My
my
rating-
first episodes, it does everything it's supposed to do. It sets up where everybody's at and gives you where places it might go. You know,
But beyond that, there's a lot of
little bit
sentiment
of writing
that comes
contrivances
with it.
here and there. Maybe some little nitpicks if I want to get like nerdy, nitpicky, but like nothing to me was outlandishly bad about it. It was all very solidly well done. Great
A
acting.
better theme tune. Or,
I mean, a better version of modern day Star Trek than anything I've seen in the last 10 years.
20 some odd
20
years
years,
or 10
right.
years.
Including Enterprise.
Including
if we include
Enterprise.
that in
To
modern
me, the
Star
Orville is the
Trek.
closest thing I've seen, and that's kind of a weird show.
It's not that good.
so
The
well,
the Orville is a great show for the 90s, but I mean,
for the 90s,
Right.
for the late 90s. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I
Now,
stand
Humbert,
with
you
my
gave it an
8.
8.
I
You
stand
got it
with
stand.
my
Oh, great!
8.
I'm glad.
You gave it an 8?
You sure you don't want to?
I gave it an 8.
He gave it an
is
8.
Obviously
That's
not
high
a
for-
9 or a 10. It is obviously an 8.
Humbert trends at 4s and 5s for our discussions. So
No, there's
You give-
7s. There
There's
are
7s.
7s.
There's a
I don't think I've
6
ever
in there.
given. I don't know. I don't think I've ever given anything a 6. I've never found a 6. I don't know.
Never
But
found a
I'm sure
6?
you have. We'll have to
I'll find you a 6.
database.
What's a
database?
I'll find you a 6. I see.
you'll find me a 6. Okay. All right.
So,
Database
Sabros
Boy
is
is
a what,
working
a
on
2?
recording all the ratings into a Excel file. So soon we'll be able to
1.5.
reference
Okay.
who's doing this?
previous episodes. Database Boy, my assistant.
Oh, okay.
You know, I've never. Does Database Boy really exist?
So Database Boy has been 4 people. It's a title. Gary was actually Database 1 at one point, but he didn't want to do any of the work. But this is a nice gentleman that I met on the internet, and he wants to remain. He doesn't like to be on screen. He doesn't, but he's offered his services as like a database person. So he's collecting data for me on all the Starfleet.
When will we have access to the database? To the archive?
I don't know. I don't pay this kind of person. So
because
so
database, there's a ban on database boys now.
I'm afraid he is so in the Starfleet Boy headcanon, Database Boy is a synthetic life form.
It's just like you're just connected to some sort of AI on the online, and you're like, please.
Before you give your rating, Sean, look, I got the little
I from
Fansets number 1.
Oh, is that the Space Force logo? The U.S. Space Force.
Oh wow!
Space Force.
And then we have the Vulcan IDIC symbol, which I think it's supposed to be
diversity and infinite combinations. Yes. All right.
Which look, there's the doctor in the correct.
All right, Sean. Can you give your rating now?
I have an 8.
An 8. There we go. See, the correct answer is 8. Yes.
That's not the correct answer.
Correct
answer is infinite plus forever.
Correct.
Yeah, so to me, I give this an unrateable because similar to Ruben, I'm in the hype. So technically, we have to round those down to 10s for practical purposes. So 2 10s and 2 8s, so we go up to a 9. It holds its group status of a 9, which is pretty freaking high. That's a great.
But you got to be careful giving like premiere pilot episodes 10s here, because then. Yeah. Can only go down.
There's two different. There's two different.
We haven't finished the story yet, even. So no, but I think I give it an 8 because I think all of us agree is that this is basically set up modern Star Trek.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
this did a lot more than Star Picard.
Well, it's that Discovery could never be modern Star Trek because it was a prequel.
Exactly. This is modern Star Trek.
Sahel and I talked about a bunch of times.
Correct.
It was
my
also
problem with Discovery and Enterprise was like Star Trek's always about moving forward. Don't stop doing prequels.
Right.
Do what's next. Show where humanity can go, not where we were 10 years before where we can go. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, push the story forward.
Discovery was also too obsessed with being different. It was like, oh, we're going to do a different version of Star Trek. We're going to bring something new to the table.
Right.
Just try and think about what would make sense within the universe, and then expand on that.
Exactly.
That's what
Humbert and I have been following this trend with like trepidation for 10 plus years. We first noticed that it's this idea of like this incredible idea of just nostalgia, like playing on this. I mean, this is like rampant in reboots, like redoing, like going back. Star Trek 2009 is great and fun as it is. Again, we were like, oh wow, well okay, fine, it was fun, it was great, but why? What's this like crazy obsession with nostalgia? And finally, I feel like that's broken. Like
this is the perfect balance, isn't it? Because you're using a character that we know and love.
Have the right.
You're building on it. You're building towards something new.
Right. No, that's absolutely true. The trap of nostalgia, it's just going to be you're just kind of, it's just the same thing being regurgitated with new colors or whatever. Right. But this feels like we're going forward, and actually, I think the episode did not rely on a lot of nostalgia at all, really. I mean, other than seeing a couple of old characters back.
It gave us the Enterprise D and
but that was right.
But in a dream
right
sequence,
at the beginning, but we move forward. We're moving forward. Picard.
We didn't even talk about
happened to Picard that we had never seen.
Right. Another thing I like is how it modernized. I mean, first of all, we get a lot of regular life that we don't normally like. We talked about how we see another city, Boston, where we rarely ever saw. So I like how it reestablishes even touching
the streets of Paris,
even touching on like Blade Runner again. There's that scene where she's walking by the restaurant. It's very Blade Runner-ish, very neon, big city in the background, dark cyberpunk noir, mystery noir story. Like I made a comment earlier about if they're smart, now make the other characters around him very interesting, where you want to know more about them too, so that you can parlay this into a series of shows.
I'm already very interested
in this universe
because
you've reestablished you've reestablished what life is like in this version of Star Trek in the future, how things operate, minimalist. We talked about the minimalism of the tech and how real that feels. Like it feels a lot more connected. to what the future
Well,
might
it also
be like, rather than big
it's
panels.
also finally right. It's fulfilling something great that Star Trek always does too, is that like even in Star Trek the technology looks more advanced than what we last saw, but it looks familiar. Like the replicator, the archive, you know, the whole idea. We talked about this at length in our previous discussion, Humbert and I, but the archive is an extraordinary idea, but it's so simple. It's like you literally store the it's like they've figured out a way to like beam an object and store that pattern indefinitely in this like buffer, and then when you need that thing, like the painting, you just recall it and it reconstitutes it, or it recreates it for you. So like those ideas are new. Like now you have like, what were you calling it, the Dungeons and Dragons, the bag,
the bag of holding.
The bag of holding. Like you can a starship, you're no longer bound by space. I think one of the things is like,
Captain.
you don't have to store things in a traditional way. You can store them now as packets of data. Like they can be stored as patterns, in other words, in buffers indefinitely, and what's brilliant about that is there are connections going back to like Scott. They would have analyzed how Scotty held his pattern for 70 years in a buffer, and built these technologies based on these actual things that happen throughout the show. So it's just wonderful.
Well, even think about like an advanced, maybe a 3D printer 50 years from now that can print you something. The painting, you can look at it, and then when you don't need it anymore, it can disassemble the painting,
dematerialize it. Right, that's basically what's happening.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's basically what's happening.
I've been recalling Moriarty all the time.
Yeah.
You're still trapped in cyberspace, Moriarty. Computer, Moriarty off.
That cover that they have on the painting, right? Mm-hmm. It's essentially the same kind of technology that they had on Pike's face in that short trick, but it's annoying in the short tricks.
Because it doesn't fit in that time period.
It doesn't fit in that time period. It's not something I feel Starfleet would do, like put a thing on the dude's face or whatever, and it serves the plot only. It's just to have the reveal that it's Pike. But it's dumb because they, as you guys talked about trailers earlier, they'd already released trailers. We knew that Pike was in the episode, so it's not a surprise. This, however, it feels like it's logical. It's protecting a painting. It makes sense. It fits in the era because the technology can be more advanced. It also doesn't look like it disappears into nothing. It actually starts out very thin and it falls into a thicker
then
thing.
It goes into
So,
which makes more sense physically. It makes sense from a physics
anymore.
Perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
This is correct. It is a correct episode.
It is.
It is a correct episode. I loved talking about. I can talk about Picard ad nauseum, and so thank you for joining me, gentlemen. This was really exciting. There's obviously, so much we can unpack, but now comes the wait until Thursday when the next exciting episode of Star Trek Picard comes out, and I just hope it continues to ride this crescendo, this slow crescendo that eventually will like peak and like give us a wonderful feeling,
Now that I'm married
a wonderful
to CBS All Access for 2 months, I'm gonna watch.
By the way,
Discovery.
So Ruben totally he started out with the trial and like after he saw Picard, he was like, just sign me up, take my money, CBS.
Well, I'll tell you, even the fact that I watched it this soon says something, because most of the time I'm like, oh yeah, I want to watch that, and then a week goes by, I'm like, oh, I gotta remember to watch that, and then like 2 weeks go by, and I'm like, I'm just never gonna get around, and then months go by, and then I just never end up watching anything. So the fact that on Friday I was like, hey, I told my wife, I'm signing up for a free week, and we're gonna watch Picard, and I thought all 10 episodes were coming out because I'm a Netflix person. And so I was like, I'm going to binge the show over the weekend. So I was ready to watch 10 episodes this weekend. And then I saw, like, 2 minutes into the first episode, I'm like, yeah, let's just pay for a couple months. I'll watch Twilight Zone while I'm here. I'll watch Discovery. My second favorite TV show of all time is Twilight Zone. So I'm like, all right, I'll watch Twilight Zone. And then I'll watch Discovery while I'm here. Maybe some Heathcliff.
Heathcliff and Friends. Oh God.
Heathcliff, no one should.
Terrify the neighborhood. Before we go, will you guys promote any of your ongoings? I know Humbert never has anything to promote, so unless the book fair is in town. So,
Am I the main promoter for the book fair? I didn't know this.
But yeah, you always in past Starfleet Boys, you're always promoting the book fair. But
can Database Boy please reference what episodes I promote the book fair? I have no memory of this.
But before we go, Ruben, do you have anything going on?
No reference.
Script readings or anything like that?
Actually, yeah. Next Tuesday at Naked Angels on Miami Beach. My first 12 pages of feature film I'm writing is going through a cold reading. So if anyone wants to see it, it's called Coexist. I call it Do the Right Thing Meets The Exorcist with a touch of Clue.
Did you sprinkle time travel on it?
Sprinkle time travel on it, baby. Oh my god! So yeah,
Very nice.
That's next Tuesday. Coexist,
and that's for Miami. So if we have any Miami audience, which by the way we do have quite a few
yes.
audience members.
It's called
in Florida
Tuesdays at
Miami,
9/Naked Angels. It's an event that goes on every Tuesday at 9. It's a cold reading series, so they usually read 2 or 3 scripts. There's some live music, comedians, stuff like that. Kind of like an open mic, but focused around scripts and actors.
And did you get your website that you alluded to in a few episodes ago?
I did by the name, Ruben-Rights.com.
Great.
But it's not live yet, so.
Okay,
still
gotcha.
under
Okay, so
construction, as they say.
gotcha.
As we
Well, by
used to
the
say back in
time,
the day.
for some audience members who might be tuning into this months from now, it might be live. So go check out Ruben-Rights.com. It might actually be around because we are non-linear and non-corporeal sometimes here on the show.
So
Sean's got a review coming out. What's that?
If you want to find me, Tuesdays at 9. Go ahead.
Hold on.
No,
I
one at a time.
was just gonna say I don't think we're non-corporeal, but
Well, we are there's 4 of us in this weird box, and we're disembodied from our. I don't know.
I feel like a caveman watching TV.
It's true. So, Sean, when's your official review coming out?
I don't know these things. I have a week to put it out. I have to put it out before next Thursday. Essentially, that's my time table.
But you've been giving us little flashes or previews.
You know what? I've written it. The script is complete, and I filmed it. I filmed it yesterday.
Oh, cool.
So
nice.
I will be editing it. And then I tagged something on at the end where I translate what Picard said in French, but they didn't have it subtitled. And so I might
to
be
the
doing
guillotine.
Yeah.
To the guillotine. That's the scene you're referring to, right?
Yeah.
Alors, guillotine. Alors.
Oh, the drama.
Allah.
Yeah, no, I don't know if they're going to be doing a lot of this.
La patrie. Sorry.
I don't know if they're going to be doing a lot of that. He's just dropping random French lines, but they don't translate.
I hope he does. I love it. One other thing that I would like to promote that I wanted to participate in, but I had technical problems with, but I'm promoting it for you, Sean. Sean participated in Captain Picard Day, which was like a YouTube
watched
event.
that. That was very good, Sean. By the way, yes.
Oh, thank you.
I liked yours.
Yeah. And there were like a bunch of YouTubers.
There were plenty of others.
Yeah. Well, I watched yours and 2 others. I can't remember who the 2 others were.
Probably Ketwalski and maybe did Trekkie Rob do one? I'm not sure, but there were a bunch of great YouTubers that participated in that. So if you go check out,
it was fun to be part of it, to be part of the collaboration.
Yeah, so if you go check out Sean's YouTube page, Trek on the Tube, you can find that video, the Captain Picard Day video, and there's a link to a playlist with videos. I was supposed to be a part of that initial launch, but unfortunately I had technical problems, so my video is going to be part of the wave of, because the invitation is open to anyone who wants to add to it, so I will add mine to the playlist coming soon for Starfleet Boys participation. And it looks like the Doctor has to go, so I think that wraps it up. Live long and prosper, everybody.
Sorry.
Live long and prosper, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.